On a one-man mission, you're plunged deep into pitch-black darkness, a confined, suffocating space with unknown dangers lurking just inches from your face. No, this is not a nightmare. This was a chilling reality for an elite group of soldiers known as the Tunnel Rats during the Vietnam War. After diving in and learning what hell these men went through, you'll understand what a claustrophobic nightmare war can be. The Tunnel Rats, a term that sends shivers down the spines of those who know the real horrors these men faced. Armed with only a flashlight and a pistol, they dared to venture where others wouldn't. Their mission? To navigate and neutralize the intricate tunnel systems used by the Viet Cong. These men would crawl in these dark, never-ending narrow tunnels, scraping by on their bellies, unsure of what the dark shadows were concealing, never knowing what could be lurking around the next corner or if the earth above them would cave in, slowly crushing them to death in slow, agonizing torture. "We're just like rats down here, ain't we?" was a common mantra spoken by the soldiers with one of Vietnam's most dangerous mission objectives: an extensive tunnel network. To begin the journey into the bowels of Vietnam, let's turn to a place called Cu Chi. Here you'll find an underground metropolis, a sprawling complex known as the Cu Chi Tunnels. Spanning over 130 miles, these were not just tunnels, they were an underground lifeline for the Viet Cong, a vast interconnected maze stretching from the Cambodian border to the outskirts of Saigon. The tunnels were suffocatingly narrow, barely wide enough for a man's shoulders. The tunnel rats would force their way through spaces so tight you could get stuck and never see another sunrise again. The only sound was their shallow breaths and heartbeat echoing through this network of obsidian blackness 50 feet below the surface. Every corner a potential death trap, every silence a possible prelude to an ambush. Yet, within this forbidding maze, life thrived. It was not merely a conduit for movement or a hiding place, but an underground city with hospitals, kitchens, meeting rooms, and even weapon factories, all teeming with activity mere meters beneath the oblivious hostile forces. With many facilities like hospitals destroyed above ground, you'd find surgeons performing life-saving procedures by the dim glow of a lantern or the smell of cooked rice wafting through the narrow tunnels. At the other end, a VC soldier meticulously cleaning his weapon, the only barrier between him and certain death. Room after room, cache after cache, the tunnels were an underground fortress sustaining thousands of fighters and civilians, all under the noses of the world's most powerful armies. Death at every corner. Being a tunnel rat was not just a job, but a deadly gamble with fate. Each descent into the blackened belly of the earth was a confrontation with a parade of unimaginable horrors. The blackness all-encompassing, the tunnel pressing in, your heart pounding like a war drum in your ears. Your flashlight reveals just enough, a glimpse into a world where danger lurks behind every corner. Every crawl, every step could be your last. The tunnels were a battlefield in themselves, infested with insidious booby traps. Innocuous mounds of dirt hid pits lined with punji stakes, sharpened bamboo spikes, often smeared with poison, urine, and feces, a grotesque trap designed to infect any wound they caused. Unseen tripwires were the harbingers of explosive death. A slight touch, a misstep, and the tunnel would erupt into chaos, the shockwave reverberating through the confined space. And nature was no friend either. Venomous snakes, biting insects, monstrous rats. They all called these tunnels home. Each creature was not just a threat, but a carrier of diseases, turning the tunnels into a nightmarish petri dish. But the most chilling adversary was the unseen enemy. Viet Cong soldiers lurking in the shadows, ready to unleash a hailstorm of bullets. It was always a fight to the death in these narrow quarters of fear. In this hostile world, the very walls seemed to betray the tunnel rats. Armed with only a pistol, a knife, and indomitable courage, they navigated this labyrinth of death, constantly wrestling with the invisible arms of the Grim Reaper. The Australian tunnel rats, from light into darkness. Duty in Vietnam wasn't exclusive to the American armed forces. The Australian engineer field troops were also venturing deep into the belly of the beast. Rough and tough, these men played a deadly game in the underground labyrinths, facing death with stubborn tenacity and raw courage. 3 Field Troop, 1st Field Squadron Royal Australian Engineers were among the first to become tunnel rats. Deployed in '65, they initially handled road clearing and demining. A haunting reminder of the past comes from Sapper Bob O'Connor, encapsulates these men's mindset. If you stay, you gotta believe that you're already dead. Tunnel rat casualty rates are ridiculously high, so it's not too hard to believe. Once you accept that you're a dead man walking, the job gets much easier. It's a personal challenge. These young men were untrained, unprepared, and under-recognized, but they didn't back down. Even when Corporal Bob Botel suffocated on his mission, their resolve remained unbroken. They knew the dangers, the bad air, the claustrophobic darkness, the fear, yet they accepted it all, entering the jaws of death time and again. Not for the faint-hearted, being a tunnel rat demanded a certain kind of thrill-seeking audacity, a world of pitch-black tunnels, close-quarters combat, and the constant threat of death. The bravest of the brave, or the craziest. Their staggering 36% casualty rate was enough to leave a mark on the psyche. These experiences leave scars that run deeper than skin, penetrating deep into your soul. It's a hell that never leaves you. Psychological impact. War beneath the surface. The impact of the subterranean warfare on the tunnel rats was far beyond the physical. It was a dark game of cat and mouse, played in the narrow tunnels of Vietnam, where fear and uncertainty became their closest allies. The incomprehensible reality of an enemy lurking mere feet away, yet being undetectable and unreachable, gnawed at the morale of the American soldiers. Rifleman Frank Gutierrez, a Cu Chi and Long Binh veteran from 1967 to 1970, voiced this unnerving experience. We often wondered how things happened in the night. Guys getting their throats cut. We had numerous tunnel rats, but we never knew exactly where or how extensive. We just didn't know. The intimate proximity of combat within the tunnels was an added psychological torment. The soldiers were trained for open warfare with air and artillery support, not for a savage face-to-face confrontation where cunningness and raw guts were the only armaments. The Viet Cong, forced by their lack of funding to adapt to this close-quarters combat, were the masters of these silent, ruthless tactics. American soldiers, however, often struggled with the primal ruthlessness required in these tight confines. Despite the exigencies of survival that sometimes forced them to kill, many were haunted by their actions. There were instances when their comrades had to drag them out of the tunnels, broken, crying, and screaming. The psychological toll of being a tunnel rat was immense. They navigated not just the physical labyrinth beneath Vietnam, but also a mental maze of fear, uncertainty, and the raw, confronting reality of survival. You would think that after all the suffering of tunnel warfare that it would have died there in Vietnam alongside so many young, brave men. Think again. Vietnam was only the beginning. Tunnel rats, echoes in Afghanistan and Israel. The spirit of the tunnel rats reverberates across the globe. Their audacious legacy lives on from the rocky terrains of Afghanistan to the tumultuous lands of Israel. Afghanistan, the Soviets' burrows. The labyrinthine tunnels of Afghanistan, ancient conduits for water and the Kharis, took on a new, sinister purpose during the 1979-1989 Soviet War. Mujahideen fighters converted these subterranean passageways into hideouts and transportation routes, which became a thorn in the side of the Soviet 40th Army. In response, the Soviets formed their own breed of tunnel rats, clearance and demolition units tasked with confronting enemy combatants in these underground labyrinths, disarming lethal booby traps, and destroying the complexes. Echoes of these efforts are present in the contemporary accounts of the U.S. Marine Corps and British Royal Marines, who undertook similar operations in the war in Afghanistan. Israel, the Weasel Warriors. The spirit of the tunnel rats also found its way to the volatile lands of Israel within the ranks of an elite combat engineer unit, Yahalom. This unit houses a specialized formation known as Samur, Hebrew for weasel. Much like their Vietnam counterparts, the weasels are charged with daunting underground missions. Navigating the depths of intricate tunnel systems, they confront and neutralize hidden threats, perpetuating the audacious legacy of the original tunnel rats. Tunnel rats are a certain breed of their own. Would you have the courage to face your fears and press on? What would that do to you psychologically? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And remember, History is filled with unsung heroes who braved unimaginable horrors. They did it not for the glory, but for the survival and success of their comrades. So, join us next time as we dive into another gripping story from the annals of everything military.